Genshin 5.7's banners are freaking stacked, so today I aim to tell you who'll get you the most bang for your Primo Gem in a quick TLDR way. My name is Deuce, and let's get into it. As always, this video will serve as a quick TLDR way for you to understand whether the unit is worth it for your account or not. I'll have more in-depth pros and cons out on each unit that's coming up this patch closer to their time. Alright, cool, let's go. Kicking things right off of Skirk, she's gonna be a fantastic crowd DPS for sure. She's mostly based around the normal attacks playstyle, so she's gonna end up feeling more consistent on the whole compared to somebody like Ayaka, who wants the majority of her burst to land in order to make the most out of her damage output. She's most likely gonna end up being the best crowd DPS, but like with any damage dealer of this element, you seriously want to Escoffier in order to make the most out of her. Those numbers aren't gonna be anywhere near as impressive if you don't have the molding chef on hand. Aside from that particular restriction, and her wish to play with primarily Hydro and crowd teammates, she's gonna have a pretty solid selection of teammates to choose from. Yelan is gonna be a good option, and our dearest Hydro Archon will of course be excellent. Shenhe will be a stellar pick, and you can even consider using units such as C4 Mona. There's plenty of different angles that you can take. Ideally you'd have Escoffier Ramsey though. You can even opt to play her as an off-field burst nuker instead, if that's more your style. Her burst animation is really sick after all. When playing her like this, instead of utilizing her as an on-field crowd damage dealer, you swap in when her burst is up and fire away. This is actually not going to be a bad way to use her, so no, you're not wasting your Skirk by doing this. It's a nice way to utilize her if you've already got a well-built crowd DPS roster on your account, but you still want to use her in some way. She'll also be a usable teammate in Mr. Settle Down teams through those means, and other on-field Hydro main DPSs. I should also add, she has access to some unique synergies, such as 4-piece Intercity Muolani on R5 TDDS. It sounds cursed, but the Shark Surfer's gaining access to the damage bonus percent while also getting a good chunk of HP, so her burst actually does solid damage. You can even opt to use Lolly on the same setup. But note that she's not going to be shredding crowd rise or doing personal damage on the level of Muolani, but she is going to buff Lady Farina or Yelan's damage, so she does come with her own set of benefits. She doesn't feature any ER requirements, which is lovely, as she uses her own unique energy system, and she doesn't have any sort of nice hole-based restrictions. However, considering that we already have so many strong crowd DPSs, and I doubt that her off-field burst playstyle will be particularly best to slot anywhere, I would ask yourself whether you actually really need a good new hypercarry or not. Or shoot, just pull her because she's your beloved waifu. That's cool too. I'm putting her in S tier for the value rankings of this patch. She's gonna be a great DPS, but keep in mind that this is assuming you've got yourself an Escoffier. Then we move on to the Divine Maiden Shenhe. This character's got a lot going for her now that Crow as an element is no longer frozen in the water. Anyways, she's the premier buffer for the element and is especially effective with units such as Ayaka. She gives you access to the potential strongest possible Skirk team too, in the Abyss Lady, Lady Farina, the Divine Maiden herself, and Escoffier Ramsey. So she's worth getting in that regard as well. She's suddenly turned into a great source of high Primogem based investment for any cryo enjoyer, which is excellent. She's good in real beastly freeze too, and has great value with Ganya as well, an all-round great support for the element. However, I should add that she's very niche. If you're not going to be investing into this element long-term, then I think Shenhe's a pretty easy pass. She's locked to crowd teams specifically, and there's no real reason to use her anywhere else other than them. You'll get a lot of kilometers out of her now though, especially since we have Skirk coming up. She's also one of the premium components to mono crowd teams, if that's an archetype you're interested in playing. So if you're interested in playing extremely strong crowd teams, then yes. Shenhe is a very interesting unit that offers a super unique way of supporting the teams through her icy quills, and can benefit just about any DPS of the element. But as always, with any niche support, their value is going to be totally dependent on how invested you are in that specific niche. Also, if you don't have an Escoffier, then Cryo is straight up just not worth playing outside of Melt in some particular circumstances, so if you don't own the Molding Chef, then I'd pass. Also, as somebody who has a C2 R1 Shenhe, I think C1 is pretty decent, but I'd pass on the C2. I'd rather get C2 Escoffier these days if you're looking to heavily invest into Cryo some more. I'm gonna slot her into A tier for the value rankings of this patch. She's a fantastic Cryo support, and she's definitely seen quite the resurgence in value considering the recent uptick in value that Cryo DPSs have had meta-wise. However, she's still quite niche, so I wouldn't put her any higher than this. Then we roll up to the exalted Pyro Archon herself, Mavuika. This honorary son of Caledon is obviously one of the strongest characters in the entire meta right now, for numerous reasons. Ever since her release, she's absolutely shattered the meta in half, and has definitely lived up to her name as being the goddess of war, that's for sure. Meta-wise, she's got it all. First off, she's the best DPS in the game. You can't really contest the valuableness of that, it's non-negotiable. She is straight up just the best DPS in the game. Out of all of the power DPSs that we currently have, nobody is beating this motorcyclist. Her melt teams of Lolly are genuinely something to marvel at when it comes to how powerful they are. She's able to do some ridiculously strong initial burst hits if you're able to land the melt. It's kind of absurd, honestly. Genuinely a force to be reckoned with. Nobody else comes close, to be honest. I doubt that any main DPS is going to dethrone her as being the absolute best in the game, at least until we get stuck into Nord Cry for a little bit. I think her reign is going to last until perhaps 6.2 to 3 if I were to have a guess. I will say that yes, she is currently the best DPS, but like I just said, we're getting a rerun during the tail end of Notlon, so keep in mind this could change going into the next region. But it's worth noting that the behemoth DPSs that are a cut above the rest remain as being incredibly strong to this day, with one of my favorite examples being Mr. Settle Down himself. So yes, I still think Mavuika is a safe main DPS pull even now, especially because her playstyle is genuinely as simple as spin around the enemy. Yup. Then there's her off-fielder playstyle. She indeed ended up being the best install power replicator for every Notlon unit that cares about that. If you made a Notlon character, then yes. Mavuika is an instant must pull because of how well she salted into all of our teams. Mualani Vape, Kinich Burning, any sort of Chaska team in general. There's of course Mavuika's own melt teams, Ares's overload teams of Chevreuse. You get the idea. She's utterly busted with the whole lot of them, and isn't to be slept on as an off-fielder. It's always going to be best in slot to just play her as her own main DPS as of now, but at least this means that whenever we get stronger and stronger units over time, this off-field presence playstyle of hers will always be relevant. She's also able to replace Xiangling in many teams due to this power ring of hers, being one of the only characters to ever contest the Leeway Chef in terms of the off-field power applicant role, and because it's an elemental skill-based ability, she ends up feeling nice in Overworld too, while not facing ER issues, because she quite literally has no use for ER, due to her wish to be played with Night Soul characters in order to generate fighting spirit. Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things about Mavuika. She would love to be played with somebody like Shilunen or Yonsan in order to generate fighting spirit, so that she can cast that utterly nuclear burst of hers. But at least both of those are pretty versatile units, so you can still slot Mavuika into most team cores effectively. Even when you play her as a sub-DPS, her personal damage is astoundingly good, and she offers a solid amount of damage dealt increase via her A4. She's always going to remain as the best install pull for any Notlon mains, and is currently one of the strongest possible DPSs that you can invest into at the minute. Her pull value certainly sits within SS Plus tier as of now. If you want to make a meta pull, then Mavuika is not going to steer you astray. Then there's Emilie. She's a really solid unit, a niche character that appreciates being played in Burning and Burgeon teams. You're mostly going to be picking her up if you're a fellow Kinich enjoyer such as myself. Part of why she's so good with Kinich isn't actually because of her personal damage, which is very, very high by the way, but actually also because she's able to help maintain Burning on the enemies. This helps Kinich generate more Night Soul, which means he can consistently get 4 to 5 cannon shots off consistently every skill cast, perhaps even 6 if you're good enough at the game. You can use her as an on-fielder too if you have C6 Bennett activated, since that means you're able to run her in a silly national team of sorts that doesn't actually do too badly, so that's a cool non-Kinich use case that she has. You can even play her in something like Coriander Quickburn, a team that honestly does surprisingly well considering how odd it might seem at first glance. But no, it actually does work out pretty well, so that's a consideration if you're really into the champion duelist. There's also the fact that she's viable for Mualani, since maintaining burning on enemies can help her vape quite consistently. It's a synergy that I'm personally a fan of. You can also play her with basically any power DPS and enjoy a burning team that way, so even outside of Kinich and Hao teams, she has a whole lot going for her. But even so, Kinich is the main reason that you're going to want to get her. Yes, she's strong elsewhere, and definitely fulfills her niche role excellently, but you have no reason to indulge if you're not interested in burning and Burgeon characters in particular. Excellent at what she does, but far from a necessity, but I really want to emphasize her pull value to Kinich mains. If you like the Pixel Dude and his little pixel creature a whole lot, then I would seriously encourage that you pick up Emilie. I'm putting her into A tier for the value rankings of this patch. Certainly a good unit that serves her purposes excellently, but is still perfectly skippable if your account doesn't really benefit from her all that much. Alrighty, another Genshin fanboy, you love to see it. Yet, as much as I like the guy, he's not really going to be all that useful. He'll be usable as a budget teammate for Skirk, but he's going to be pretty easily replaceable. It's cool to have a Hydro Shielder, but healers are generally much preferred in the current meta, and despite being a Hydro unit, I sadly don't expect this cutie patootie to catch on all that much. If you're seriously lacking in some Skirk teammates, then sure, you can use him there, but you don't really need to get him for any specific team. If you run into a few copies of him, then cool, that's nice. Sadly, this dude is genuinely releasing with basically zero good use cases. I do really like Dahlia, but man, there's just really no place to utilize the poor guy at the minute. Sadly, as cute as this guy is, I'm gonna have to slap him into C tier when it comes to the value rankings for this patch. He's adorable, but kind of useless. All around, when it comes to 5.7, there are plenty of good banners to choose from, but I would say all of them are quite specialized, barring Mavuika, who I would say is the most versatile of them all. I do think that Skirk is most likely going to end up being the strongest crowd DPS, I don't doubt that for a second, but I would say that we have plenty of good ones to choose from at the minute, and if you've already heavily invested into one, then there's no real reason to pick up Skirk. Escoffier is the real cryo savior. To be frank, I feel like pulling for any cryo unit right now without Escoffier is a bit of a dead pull. Not only that, but I would like to remind you, Not Cry is right around the corner. They are going to be teasing a whole new cast of characters not too long from now, So maybe think twice before spending all of your Primo gems on Skirk. Do you really need her? Is she really the waifu of your dreams? And if you're totally sure about that, then go ahead, invest into her. But I do want to say that I do think that she's not really going to be all that useful if you don't have a Scofier. Definitely some great banners this time around, but just be fully aware that Not Cry is right around the corner. Otherwise, who are you going to be pulling for this patch? Or is it a total skip for you? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ Tekken channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. Hopefully this video was able to tell you who'd get you the most bang for your Primo Gem in version 5.7. This has been Juice, signing out. And let's be real, meta or not, Skirk is just cool as hell, man.